We are now going to look at a preview for the kind of tool that you can build with Python after taking this course. And it's going to give you a little preview of the kind of topics that we cover in terms of cybersecurity and web applications as well. And so this is going to be a Python log analyzer. First, let's talk a little bit about access logs. Access logs are generated by web servers when users access those web servers and the contents that are hosted on them through the internet. And access logs are typically just plain text files with a particular format that we're going to look at a little later. And that format allows us to capture certain important information about that user's access of a resource on the server. And what that will mean for us is that we can then use those access logs for a variety of useful purposes. So we can use them for debugging, which is where we look at how somebody would have caused a particular error, which gets reported as a 500, or maybe even one of the 404 errors, meaning something was not found, or 403, meaning unauthorized, or any of the status codes in HTTP that are not 200. We can take a look and see what was the URL that a user was accessing, what kind of technology they were using to access it, at what time, what might have done before that, and those things can help us to figure out what might be wrong with our web application or website. And another use that kind of goes with that is performance monitoring, because we can take a look at the timing of access of certain things and try to figure out a pattern of whether things are taking too long to respond, whether that's causing any other errors, and whether that's something that we can address and then retest to see if similar response times with similar browsers or operating systems go down from there. And we can also take a look at the behavior analysis of users. And what this means is that we can see if a user comes in, suppose on the sign up page, and then actually proceeds to the registration complete page and the edit account page, and that can tell us if a user is enjoying themselves and whether they wanted to purchase whatever it is that we're selling them. Suppose in an e-commerce site, we can see whether somebody is going through the site and browsing and adding things to their basket. We can recreate those kind of things from an access log. And other several logs that we can capture, and we can use all those together to figure out user behavior. But the most important and relevant use here for us is going to be security and compliance. And that's because access logs provide us with a record of a sequence of events that might have occurred in a security incident or a potential security incident, or even just in a preventative measure. We can say, hey, let's take a look at the logs and scan them for patterns that we don't want to see there. The kind of security issues that we will look at using log analysis have to do with the threat of leaked logs. And that is a scenario that you can imagine where somebody gets access to the logs from particular servers that might contain sensitive data. And the issue, of course, with sensitive data is that it can get exposed. And when your sensitive data contains things like usernames and passwords, and maybe credit card numbers or other financial information or things like social security numbers, that can be a really big deal, because then those things can be used again, and especially in combination with something like vulnerable components in the infrastructure, to perform another attack. And a lot of times this is what we see, and this is something we'll cover in the course, is you'll see a use of information gotten through one set of means with an attack that's based on knowing about a vulnerability. And so, for example, you could find out that there's a default username and password, what we call security misconfiguration, that has been left on a particular web server or app server. And then you could also see that another set of logs might be providing you with some information about what the version of Apache is running or what version of some other server is running, and you know that that's a vulnerable version. So as an attacker, you can take those kinds of sources of information and use them together to create what's called an escalation of attack, or sometimes that kind of attack can result in an escalation of privilege. And that's something that would mean that you take small pieces of information that seem insignificant and you use them to give yourself more and more access to the system that you're trying to attack until you get the sensitive information that you're trying to get out of the system. For example, you're trying to get somebody's bank records, or worse, you're actually trying to get the money out of their bank account using just information that might have ended up in various logs. And so we're going to take a look at how to analyze an access log using what we know about the pattern that an access log statement follows. And that pattern, you can see here, is a typical log line. It starts with the IP address, followed by the timestamp of when the access happened, followed by the URL and the HTTP method that was used and the HTTP version that was used. And here we see its articles. A particular article number is being accessed of a particular PHP page, and then followed by the status code, which is 200, means it was okay, followed by the size of the page, which is not important to us, followed by the referrer, which means the page from which the user was linked to this page. In this case, you see it's a dash, meaning it was just an original hit. It was maybe from a bookmark or something that didn't allow following the referrer, meaning the referrer was not captured, and then followed by the user agent string. And you'll see that the user agent string is fairly long, and that's pretty typical nowadays. It shows a lot of information that we actually don't need, but it lets us look at the highlights, like it was a Windows system, it was Windows 10, and it was Chrome, and if it was Chrome, it was compatible with these versions of the Apple WebKit and Safari. And that kind of information is useful if you are trying to gather statistics about what kind of technology people are using to access the resources that you are providing. And so using this knowledge about the access log format, we are going to make a pretty simple tool, but a pretty effective one, to look through access log lines like these and see if any username and password information is getting inadvertently output to the logs when people are using our system. And here we are in REPL.it, which is going to be our interactive Python programming tool. And we will go through the intros to how stuff works in here. But for now, I just wanted to show you the code for this tool and how simple it is to make effective cybersecurity tools in Python. We have this main file here. We are importing the regular expression library. Then we're opening the access log. And this is just a sample access log that we put together with a few log lines. And you'll see they follow the pattern that we were looking at, except a couple of them will see they contain the username and password on the login. And that's because there was a bug in the application, which is leaking the credentials to the URL. And that's the kind of thing that we want to catch. And so to catch it, what we do is we get the log contents from the file, we split it line by line, and then we use the regular expression here to find a pattern and then use that pattern to continue to parse the line using the format that we know about. And then we take the URL and we grab the query part, which is the part after the question mark, from there, and we see if a password was found. And if the password was found, then we report that likely credentials were found. So if we run this right now, we'll see that it finds 2 lines in our access log, and it reports those, and it shows what the credentials found were. And so a security analyst can look at this and say, hey, that's something that we need to take care of. We need to report this software, and we need to take care of the access logs as well. We need to scrub them. And so you see it's a fairly straightforward program, not more than 20 lines, but because of the use of particular technologies like the regular expression library and just the expressive power of the Python programming language, we're able to accomplish a lot in a little. And you'll see this expression here. If we change it, we can look for different patterns, and we can change the logic to look for different patterns. So feel free to play around with this. This is going to be in the text lecture notes that follow this preview. and you can grab that, try it on rebel.it yourself, and see if it works with different log formats. You can add many more lines here, try a larger log, see how that works, see how many credentials you can find. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.